Did you want to say anything about it, or?
Yeah, so I just wanted to tell that they have linked the papers and so the code base and the weights of the models.
So that's all open source.
Yeah.
All right. So this is TRIBEv2, a predictive foundation model trained to understand how the human brain processes complex stimuli. So this is a generalized model of human cognition, a zero-shot prediction of neural activity. And so the takeaways, we're introducing TRIBEv2, our next-gen model that acts as a digital twin of human neural activity. This offers unprecedented speed, accuracy, and a 70-fold resolution increase as compared to similar models to predict how the brain responds to almost any sight or sound, enabling neuroscientists and clinical researchers to test theories without requiring human subjects. We're releasing the model, codebase, paper, and interactive demo, as Kavya mentioned, to help researchers push the boundaries of neuroscience, apply brain insights to build better AI systems, and use computational simulation to accelerate breakthroughs in the treatment of neurological disorders. Understanding how the human brain processes the world around us is one of the greatest open challenges in neuroscience. Breakthroughs here could transform how we understand and treat neurological conditions affecting hundreds of millions of people, and improve AI systems by directly guiding their development from neuroscientific principles. So this is building on our Algonauts 2025 award-winning model. And this is a paper that they, I think we maybe talked about this paper once in the meetings. I know Morgan talked maybe about that a little bit at some point, but I don't remember. So this Algonauts 2025 award-winning model, which was trained on the low-resolution fMRI recordings of 4 individuals, allow us to leverage a massive data set of more than 700 healthy volunteers who are presented with a wide variety of media, including images, podcasts, videos, and text. TRIBEv2 reliably predicts high-resolution fMRI brain activity, enabling zero-shot predictions for new subjects, languages, and tasks, and consistently outperforms standard modeling approaches. By creating a digital model of the human brain, researchers can rapidly test hypotheses about its underlying functions without the need for human subjects in every experiment. To accelerate the pace of neuroscience discovery and open up new avenues for clinical practice, we're sharing a research paper along with model weights and code under an open source Creative Commons license. We also invite everyone to explore TRIBEv2 on our demo website. And so this is a link to some of the papers. So they have the model here, which is on Hugging Face. This is TRIBEv2. This is a deep multimodal brain encoding model that predicts fMRI brain responses to naturalistic stimuli, video, audio, and text. And then it combines state-of-the-art feature extractors. So for text, it uses Llama 3.2. For video, VJPA2. And for audio, Wave2Vec BERT. So this is these are all models in these domains, and it's kind of unifying this into a transformer architecture that maps multimodal representations onto the cortical surface. So if you want to use their pre-trained model, you load the pre-trained model from TRIBEv2. This is in Python, so you're loading TRIBEv2. You're importing the TRIBE model. Your model then is defined as this pre-trained model. You're building a data frame, which is where you're getting the events. You have this from this video file. Then you have predictions and segments. You're predicting events from this data frame, and then you're printing out the shape of or what they call preds.shape, which is the number of vertices and the number of time steps. So it's this, I guess, dynamic model of the brain network. So that's basically what it is. Predictions are for the average subject and live on this cortical mesh. You can also pass text path or audio path to model get events data frame The text is automatically converted to speech and transcribed to obtain word-level timings. So they have a Colab demo notebook here. They have a Colab notebook here that is kind of goes through. So you have to set this up in Colab. You load the model. You predict the brain responses to a video. And this is just like kind of a little bit more detail what they showed in that little code codelet on the last page. Then you run the model, and you visualize predictions on the brain surface. So then you create a figure here where you're plotting out the time steps, you're plotting out the segments instead of the edges, and then you are kind of fixing the parameters of this. So you have the video here, and this just has the video frames, the audio, so it has the waveform of the audio, and then it has the brain response here over time. So it's just modeling it at different time steps. So this is where it's predicting brain responses to text via text-to-speech. So TRIBE version 2 can also predict brain responses to text input. Since the model is trained on naturalistic audio and video stimuli, text is first converted to speech using Google Text-to-Speech, or GTTS, then transcribed back to obtain precise word-level timings. So the example here is from Shakespeare's Hamlet, and this is text. So this is where it's going to predict this text. It produces a table here that is where you have the type of input for each time step. You have the starting point and the duration. Then you have this file path, like where do you get this data from? So that's there. And then you have the text, which in this case for text here is this quote up above. For the sentence, it's to be or not to be, and it just shows like how it decomposes all of this. And then you run the model. So you run the model, and you again get this model where it takes each word and the associated waveform, and it shows the neural response. So it's this text-to-speech conversion. It's converting the text to these waveforms. It's matching and predicting that. Then it's mapping that onto the brain to predict what brain areas would be active. Again, this is all based on a limited data set. So it's, it's basically saying that if I give you this stimulus, this is how the average brain responds, or this is how individuals' brains will respond, and that's what it's actually mapping onto the human brain surface. So but it's a nice little model, I think. And so the paper here is a foundation model of vision, audition, and language for in-silico neuroscience. This is, just basically being able to do neuroscience. Basically you're exploring different hypotheses, basically. So it's a simulation. So they describe TRIBE version 2 as a trimodal foundation model capable of predicting human brain activity in a variety of naturalistic and experimental conditions. Leveraging a unified data set over 1,000 hours of fMRI across 720 subjects, we demonstrate that our model accurately predicts high-resolution brain responses for novel stimuli tasks in subjects, superseding traditional linear encoding models, delivering several-fold improvements in accuracy. Critically, TRIBE version 2 enables in silico experimentation tested on seminal visual neural linguistic paradigms. It recovers a variety of results established by decades of empirical research. Finally, by extracting interpretable latent features, TRIBE version 2 reveals the fine-grained topography of multisensory integration. These results establish artificial intelligence as the unifying framework for exploring the functional organization of the human brain. Okay, so there you go. And then this last paper here, which is this Algonauts model. So this is an arXiv paper from 2025, insights from the Algonauts 2025 winners. And so this is the Algonauts 2025 challenge. This is a challenge in computational neuroscience in which teams attempt to build models that predict human brain activity from carefully curated stimuli. Previous editions focused on still images and short videos. The 2025 edition, which concluded last month in late July, pushed the field further by using long multimodal movies. Teams were tasked with predicting fMRI responses across 1,000 whole brain parcels across 4 participants in the dataset who were scanned while watching nearly 80 hours of naturalistic movie stimuli. These recordings came from the CNeuroMod project and included 65 hours of training data, about 55 hours of Friends episodes, season 1 through 6, plus 4 feature films, The Bourne Supremacy, Hidden Figures, Life, and The Wolf of Wall Street. So there are 4 movies, 55 hours of sitcom, and it's going to learn about pop culture, I guess. The remaining data were used for validation. Season 7 of Friends for in-distribution tests, and the final winners for the challenge were who could best predict brain activity from 6 films in their held out of distribution set. All right. And then the winners were just announced, and the top team reports are now publicly available. And as members of the MEDARC team, which placed 4th in the competition, we want to reflect on the approaches that worked, what they reveal about the current state of brain encoding, and what might come next. So for this competition, there were a bunch of entries. There was TRIBE, of course, but then there were others. And so the meta people, of course, told us all about TRIBE, but that was only one of the projects. So the overall observations across all the projects, the first is reliance on pre-trained feature extractors. And so no top team trained their own feature extractors. The universal strategy was to use pre-trained foundation models to convert stimuli into high-quality feature representations. The core engineering challenge was how to integrate these features and align them with fMRI brain activity. Number 2 is that multimodality was essential. So following from the first point, every top team used pre-trained models spanning vision, audio, and language, predicting activity in higher order associated brain regions, in particular required the model to process multimodal features. So we needed multimodality, like we saw in the TRIBE model. Then that's essential to having a high degree of success here. Number 3 is that architecture didn't really matter. So for this case, if you look at the different teams, first and second place teams used transformers, third place used RNNs, fourth place was simply convolutions and linear layers, which didn't introduce any nonlinearity, and sixth place used seek-to-seek transformers. Despite these differences, the final leaderboard scores were all extremely tight, and actually the winning teams were decided by how they implemented the model ensembling. So this is interesting that transformers won, but they weren't really dominant, and so it was really not about that architecture. It was more about how they actually implemented the model. So this is, I think we had this conversation several months ago now in the meetings about what are alternatives to transformers, or what comes after transformers in a lot of these models. Like, in other words, at one point we didn't use transformers, and then transformers came on the scene, and they kind of became the state of the art. But what happens, what comes next, and what are the sort of the alternatives to transformers for maybe the new state of the art? This suggests that maybe there are, that transformers aren't going to dominate forever. It also suggests that other approaches aren't necessarily any worse, and that maybe there are some opportunities to think about improving performance by having hybrid transformers / other types of architectures. It's just an interesting conversation, and but suffice it to say, we have an example here of how we can think about this. The fourth observation is ensembling decided the winner, as we mentioned in the last point. All top teams used ensembling of some sort. Averaging model variance, often with sophisticated per parcel weighting, was the most effective way to gain noticeable performance improvements. Tribes seem to use the most sophisticated ensembling strategy, which we think determined the first place finish. So the Tribe, of course, was the first place team, but they weren't dominant. So Tribe stands for a trimodal brain encoder, and that's why they call it Tribe. And this was the meta AI team of Diascoli, Rapin, Benchetrit, Banville, and King. Stefan Diascoli was the lead on this team, and they used, of course, this Tribe model, which employed the general multimodal strategy that all the Algonauts teams used. And then this kind of, unlike some of the other top teams, Tribe only used unimodal models and did not use intrinsically multimodal models like QN 2.5 Omni or Intern VL3. Hence, it seems that while combining features from all modalities was essential for all teams, using intrinsically multimodal models was not. So I don't know what they mean by intrinsic multimodality, but they basically used all modalities, they just didn't combine them in the same way. Looking at the final leaderboard, Tribe performed noticeably better than all the rest in terms of the average Pearson correlation across the 1,000 brain parcels. However, digging into the papers a bit more, Aaron et al.'s team used in second place actually had a submission that scored 0.2125 average accuracy that was not submitted in time. I guess they maybe missed the deadline or something. Likewise, our own METARC paper discusses how we would place second with an average accuracy of 0.2117 if we were provided one additional hour to finalize our submissions. Okay, so there was a deadline. In both these cases, the performance increases simply come from better model ensembling. All of this to say that if the top teams were actually incredibly close in terms of final performance, so this was the leaderboard, kind of showing this. I think, Morgan has talked about METARC quite a bit. And so this is part of this they were part of this competition. The Tribe model was part of this competition, etc. So this is the final out of distribution leaderboard for the Algonauts 2025 challenge. In our opinion, the key innovations unique to Tribe were threefold. And the first was modality dropout during training, which forced the model to remain robust even when a modality such as audio was missing. This is a simple and intuitive solution that was likewise especially useful given the silent black and white Charlie Chaplin film in the out of distribution set. The second is a parcel-specific ensembling scheme. Rather than averaging all models equally, they computed validation performance per model, per brain parcel, and used those scores as softmax weights. The temperature for the softmax can control how aggressively you dial the ranking. So, for example, capital T approaching 0 means winner take all. Capital T approaching infinity means pure averaging. So these different strategies for softmax and how they're implemented. Careful analysis showing that multimodal models systematically outperform unimodal models and higher order associative cortices, reinforcing the idea that complex brain regions integrate multiple sensory streams. So this is basically this is sort of a theory of visual processing in the brain, that the higher level visual areas are integrating a lot of information from auditory cortex, from sensory motor cortex, and the lower parts, the brain, the visual system is shaped as sort of a hierarchy where you have lower level areas that process a lot of the patches and blobs and other things in visual scenes. And then those things get built up into feature spaces that become images. And then those images are connected to other modalities for, sort of in the higher parts of the visual stream. And so that's kind of what they're getting at here. And so they say that they're replicating this with these kinds of models. They're doing the similar thing. Okay. Further, TRIBE's report suggests that encoding performance increases with more training sessions, up to 80 hours per subject. So this means that the more data you collect, the more you have people engage with the stimuli and then record those data and then use that in the model, it's better for the model. Encoding performance increases, which makes sense because, of course, we have a wider variety of contexts and we have more data that kind of gives the model hints as to how this happens. And so this is not to be, we shouldn't be surprised at this. However, the trend appears sublinear and plateauing. So, you can't do that infinitely and get infinite gains. It works up to a point and then there's not much to learn about it. In any case, it's not the clean power law seen in large language models, and we still look forward to an eventual clean scaling law paper for neuroimaging encoding models. So they don't get this kind of scaling law that people talk about all the time with large language models. They get this sort of messier kind of scaling law for neuroimaging encoding models, although they're convinced that there is one, but who knows. So this is just kind of a diagram here. So this is the architecture of the Meta AI's TRIBE model, which views text, audio, and video representations with a transformer to predict cortical responses. So for text, we're using Llama 3.23b. For audio, we're using Wave2Vec 2, which is a BERT model. And then for video, we're using VJPA2. And then for each one, we have an FFN. So we have the text FFN, audio FFN, video FFN for the encoding. And then we have these dynamical embeddings. And we have this transformer that's linking together the modalities. And we have this pooling. And then we have our subject layer that leads to our predictions. And those predictions are ground truthed. We use a Pearson's correlation from the predictions to correlate those with the ground truth. And then we have a loss function, which is the thing that we try to improve upon. So when we don't have the results we would like in the ground truth, from the ground truth, we minimize the loss and get a better performance. Okay, so that's the first place. The second place model was this Vibe video input brain encoder. This is, of course, from Max Planck Institute. The Vibe's architecture consisted of a modality fusion transformer and a prediction transformer, which helps separate the challenges of multimodal feature integration from modeling temporal dynamics of the fMRI time series. So they use this modality fusion transformer. This integrated features from numerous models like QN 2.5, LABSC for text, Beats and Whisper for audio, Slow Fast, VJPA2, and QN 2.5 Omni for vision. These features are fused across to cross attention to create a single unified representation per time point. So they're using what they call cross attention to fuse the features together. Then their prediction transformer models temporal dependencies across time points. So this is where the prediction transformer, gives us dependency data. The authors trained the model without a causal mask, allowing it to attend to future time points. This yielded a slight performance increase, suggesting that information about future stimuli helps predict present brain responses. Okay, so this is, they maximize performance by ensembling 20 models, which happened to also be the sweet spot for our medARC submission. achieving a final mean correlation of 0.2125 on the out-of-distribution movies. They use separately trained models to predict brain parcels based on the different functional networks they belong to. The authors also experimented with explicitly modeling the hemodynamic response function. Both approaches that they used in this case decreased performance, leading them to conclude that the model's internal transformer architecture was more effective at learning the nuanced temporal delays on its own than a rigid predefined HRF. So this is the this is the transformer architecture for Vibe. These are the visual features, audio features, and textual features. They go into this modality fusion transformer, which is shown here. You have different subjects that are kind of giving this model data. Then you have this rope embedding, and then the prediction transformer, which is here. And then we have our prediction and our target, and we minimize the loss on that to get the best performance we can. Then third place was this multimodal recurrent ensemble. This was also from Max Planck. And this is basically this approach took a different route with a hierarchical recurrent architecture. They used slow-fast video MAE, SWIN transformer, and clip to extract features for visual input, Hubert and Wave LM for speech audio, CLAP for semantic audio embeddings, BERT for local text semantic features, and Longformer to extract longer-range textual content by prepending the previous episode's transcripts when extracting language features. And then a key design choice, which differed from some of the other teams, was how the authors handled temporal information. While the team that is writing this paper relied on feature extraction models themselves to capture temporal content by feeding them longer 20-second clips, the SDA team extracted features on a strict TR by TR basis. This created a sequence for each time step corresponded to an isolated 1.49 second moment of the stimulus. Okay, so that's kind of what they were doing there. Independent feature sequences were fed into their own dedicated bidirectional long short-term memory blocks, or LSTMs, allowing for future and past stimulus features to better understand the context of their current time step when predicting the corresponding fMRI signal. So this is the architecture here. They have the visual features, the audio features, and the language features. There's this average pooling. This is fed into an RNN, which can be an LSTM or GRU. We have this for the different subjects. And then these LSTMs are fed into a final model, which is a 100-seat ensemble. The team that is writing this paper, which is the MedArc team, boasts the most architecturally simple approach. We gathered features from 5 distinct models of VJPA2 for vision, Wespers for speech, Llama 3.2 for language, in turn VL3 for vision language, QN 2.5 Omni for vision language audio, and align them temporally to the fMRI signals. They're just using these combinations of different models, some unimodal, some multimodal, and then aligning them temporally to the fMRI signals. So this is, their approach is devoid of transformers or any nonlinear operations. And this was actually quite competitive with the more complex models. So this is, kind of proof that you can use very simple approaches and be competitive in that way. So the MedArc team's architecture simply used convolutional and linear layers in combination. Okay, so I think that's good. Yeah, I don't know. Thank you, Kavya, for that link and going through that. Did we have any comments or questions about that?
So, do you think there are actual applications for it in healthcare or actual practice in neuroscience?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a predictive model, they might be quite good at answering certain questions, but I think also, looking at kind of like, how, I guess, like it's a computational neuroscience question, right? Like, can we predict how the brain is activated, what parts of the brain are activated from different stimuli? So you're training these models on people who have experienced things, and we know kind of that certain parts of the brain are activated when you get certain stimuli. And so, kind of building a predictive model from that is pretty important, I think, for maybe understanding how brains work over time. So, when we do experiments, they're very sort of focused on a specific task or a specific setup. If we can expand that out to more naturalistic settings, like movies or TV shows, then we can, maybe show how the brain works in a sort of naturalistic regime and get some handle on, brain dynamics, basically, which is hard to measure experimentally. I think Morgan probably could speak to that better because he's kind of in that space. He's done a lot of that